Hello everyone and welcome to our Gas Qualification Delivery and Assessment Training Presentation 2019. This session will be delivered by myself, David Pye, and my colleague, Rob Mallender. Following this presentation, we will welcome your questions through email. Alternatively, we will be happy to arrange a suitable time to discuss this presentation as part of a conference call as required. Now let's have a look at today's agenda. So, today's agenda. First of all, we'll recap on gas qualifications and have a look at the gas qualifications from Sitting Gills that lead to gas safe registration. Then we'll move on to matters of gas training and the Appendix F requirements. Thirdly, we'll have a look at a PA1 and an EQA checklist. Then we'll move on to support for centres and some of the documents we have to support with the delivery and training of our gas qualifications. And then we'll conclude and look at next steps. So, a recap on our current qualifications. As you can see from the list there's quite a large list of qualifications that lead to gas safe registration. We need to be conscious that we need to consider all of these qualifications when looking at the PA1 and the EQA checklist for gas. However, we're aware that a couple of those are our predominant qualifications. So the 618933 and the 9074 probably have more registrations than the other qualifications.
Thanks, David. So for all the current qualifications David's mentioned which lead to gas safe registration, these are now covered by IGEM IGE1, which is the Standards of Training in Gas Work. So the Matters of Gas Training is a requirement of any qualification or certification leading to gas safe register. So basically there's now an audit requirement where we have to acknowledge our centres are providing appropriate training. Appendix F is also a requirement for current QCF qualifications and the qualifications previously mentioned. This ensures a robust system is in place for recording workplace evidence, which is documented in all our logbooks. So not to really worry about the Appendix F side of things, no real change there. Our qualifications have always met the requirements of Appendix F, and that's reflected in the logbook. So if you're using a City and Guilds logbook, you will be meeting the requirements of Appendix F. Although IGEM IG1 is quite a new thing, and that's the main driver behind the presentation today, to try and get across what them changes are going to mean for centres. So what is IGEM IG1 and how it's going to affect centres? So training now has to be proved to be recognised through an annual audit of the training programme to show it meets the requirements of IGEM IG1. So this means then training providers have to be either audited by IGEM or a recogniser of training, one or the other. So we're going through the process as City and Guilds at the moment to become a recogniser of training so we can incorporate that annual audit for you as centres. Now what that means is we're going to go through the process and the pain of becoming a recogniser of training. Otherwise, all our individual gas centres would have to be audited by IGEM individually and apply to become a recogniser of training. That has significant costs, and obviously there's a separate audit requirement to that. So we're going to become a recogniser of training and build that audit for IGEM IG1 into our processes. IGEM will then audit City and Guilds to ensure the processes are being followed through, and basically we're now checking the training programs, etc., and the requirements for the audit to ensure each of our individual centres don't have to be audited by IGEM themselves. So there've been significant costs incurred, as I say, etc. So IGEM audits City and Guilds to make sure we're auditing our centres to prevent all our individual centres, so every gas centre delivering aligned qualifications, if we don't do the audit, they would have to be audited individually and pay the incurred costs. So that's why we're going through this process. We're now trying to get that message across to centres. So although the ones being audited by IGEM are city and guilds, what this may mean is somebody from IGEM may want to almost attend one of the EQA visits we're carrying out along with our EQA. So it's the same as any audit process. They might want to come and audit us, and as part of that audit process they might want to see how we carry out our quality assurance. So they may want to come along to one of your centres in conjunction with our EQA. But if that process happens, IGEM will be auditing us and not necessarily looking at anything that the actual centre themselves are doing. That's part of the EQA visit. So what have City and Guilds now got to do as part of the process, and what's going to change? Well, we're going to try and build all the audit requirements into your current EQA visit. So this is not going to mean another visit, hopefully, in another audit process for you as a centre. So when we come out and do the EQA visit for the qualification and the assessments, there'll just be a greater focus on training. We'll be looking at some extra criteria as part of that visit to make sure it meets the requirements of IGEM IG1. Because we're already delivering regulated qualifications, a lot of the things they want us to cover in the audit are already covered by the EQA visit, which, you know, may be different for certification bodies, etc. But because we're regulated by Ofqual, they're already covered. What we will have to do though is build in some extra requirements to make sure we are looking at the relevant parts of training as well. So we're hoping to incorporate this as part of the EQA visit, but we may be looking at some extra little bits and pieces as part of that EQA visit, and that may become clearer later in the presentation. So what are we going to do to support the EQA network and centres? Well, things like this webinar today to try and get the message across to everybody, and we're also producing some clear planning documents which outlines what's going to be reviewed on the EQA visit, what's going to change, as well as simple checklists for EQAs to complete, etc. And we'll explain some of that further on in the slides. So we are producing example of documents to try and support the EQA network and centres to give them an idea of how the audit process may change. This is an extract from one of those documents, and as you can see, a lot of the items for the day. So this is the PA1. This is what an EQA would send out to a centre to plan any EQA visit currently. So this is the same document you'll receive already, but as you can see, there is some, if you look at the 1400 time there on the right, it does now include time allocated in the day to review training materials, guided learning hours, your schemes of training, making sure you've got relevant reference materials up to date, review of practical facilities, tools, equipment, etc., currency of assessment materials, storage procedures. So a lot of that might not be currently looked at on an EQA visit because we're focusing mainly on assessment, and things like that is how the visit may change. So again, another little extract from the PA1, which we're going to provide to all our EQAs to try and standardise what now happens on the EQA visit for gas qualifications. And as you can see, this includes an interview of 3 to 4 learners, a tour of the gas facilities, paying attention to gas assessment provision, and to make assessment reviews available, IQA rationales, IQA plans. That sort of stuff would always be carried out, but probably the change there is the tour of the gas facilities and the assessment provision. So as part of the support mechanism, well, we're going to provide EQA standardisation checklists to make sure everything's covered, and also these are going to be recorded on the current CAR 3 document. So the CAR 3 document is your EQA visit report form which you receive at the moment. So you're not going to receive any different paperwork, it's just going to be all documented on the current CAR 3. But there's going to be a checklist on there to make sure EQAs do carry out that process standardised and everybody's aware, you know, what's going to be looked at, etc. And that's then going to be documented, probably cut and pasted then from the checklist into the EQA documentation, so everything's recorded and documented in line with IGEM IG1. So this again is an extract from the EQA checklist. So you can see from this it does now incorporate more than the assessment process and the assessment paperwork. So tools and equipment are in a serviceable manner. Trainer evaluation of effectiveness of delivery is now going to be looked at. Things like your schema works, lesson plans, to make sure all the planning processes are in place, PPE requirements are in place, documentation is stored in a safe manner, recognised portfolio is used. So this is not everything, but this is a snapshot. Obviously some things will already be covered in any Car 3 and in any quality assurance visit, like standardisation meetings, for example. But there will be some changes, and as we've discussed, the focus is now on training as well as assessment.
We have a number of activities to support centres. This first one on this slide shows you the Gas Apprenticeship Training Manual. This is available now. There's also the search code for centres purchasing this from the walled garden. It'll speed up finding this document on the walled garden and enable centres to purchase them. It is designed predominantly as a practical training manual. It's not a requirement of the assessment, but it's a very supportive document for training, and the learners will work through the tasks, which start from quite basic tasks. They relate to the qualification and to gas training and to the matters of gas safety training, and works learners from basic activities to more advanced activities. You can see on the left hand side there's a couple of images, and it's an identification task for the learners. You can have many learners working on this at the same time, maybe in a workshop, walking around looking at these on the appliances and recording and identifying the controls within the workbook. Moving on to more advanced, like purging procedures, this may be delivered in a classroom, but it gives a practical setting to it, or you may deliver it in a practical workshop. It's a nice way of trying to merge both the practical and the knowledge. The feedback has been excellent so far on these activities, really supporting the learning, some really engaging activities, and there's a good record of what learning has taken place. Smart Screen. We also have a full package of Smart Screen for all our gas training. Here's just a couple of snips from our Smart Screen packages. So we've got nice diagrams, we've got actual pictures with explanations, some good detail to support the delivery predominantly of the knowledge aspect. So this is predominantly delivered within the classroom, helping learners understand the knowledge. They'll then take that knowledge and apply it into a skill within the workshop. So again, it's trying to merge those two worlds and make it more engaging for learners. But it's a really good package with lots of images and engaging content for learning. Support for centres, the colour logbook. This logbook has been available for a while now. In the previous format it wasn't in colour. It's been further developed, enhanced, and now we have colour to help the learners and the tutors and assessors to gather the required evidence. This full logbook meets the requirements of Appendix F. It's predominantly written in colour for the 9074, and it was broken down into pathways. So depending on the pathway the learner is on, depends on the sections within the work log that a learner completes. We also have one for the 6189, but because they meet the same Appendix F requirements, you can possibly mix and match some of these logbooks. Again, the feedback has been excellent from these. The colour really helps identify where the evidence comes from, makes it easier for the learner to identify and complete the evidence, makes it easier for the assessor and the quality assurance to identify if that evidence is in the correct format and the correct area. This is available as a free download from the 9074 website. Thank you for your time. We hope you found this training presentation useful. If you have any further questions, please email Technical Advisors David Pye and Rob Islander with your questions and to arrange a teleconference to discuss this presentation. Thank you very much.